American citizens.
the-
You know that,
Time
and
the
we know
gentleman-
it too.
time the gentleman-
With that, I yield
I
back.
disagree with that characterization.
Time of delay has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor, based on the information obtained by this committee, do you think that the email communications between the Biden White House and social media companies were coercive?
Absolutely, especially read in the context of everything that was going on, as I think was well described in the findings of fact in the district court in the Missouri versus Biden case.
When a senior White House official says to a social media company that the White House, quote, intentionally or internally, we have been considering our options on what to do about it, end quote, what sorts of adverse actions within the executive branch do you think that the social media company was most concerned about?
Well, it's pretty clear in some of the announcements they make, amending Section 230, the Communications Decency Act. They said in the same statement where they said they were concerned about what the social media companies are doing, they talked about changing antitrust enforcement. And we see this across the board. We see this with the pressure that's been put on banks and debanking operations. This is to debank people in silent speech. This is a systematic scheme to suppress the rights of individuals through government pressure.
Setting aside the obvious constitutional concerns of what's been happening, what are the practical consequences of this type of censorship or distorting the marketplace of ideas?
Well, it has concrete effects on our lives. How many parents would have changed their minds about the wisdom of keeping their kids out of school for a year and a half if they had understood what the Great Barrington Declaration said, which everybody says now that was a massive mistake. If people had accurate information about that, they might have changed their minds. If people had accurate information about the COVID vaccines, they might have changed their minds. A number of people who I talked to said, I got vaccinated because I was told it was one and done, and then only to get COVID shortly after. I want to make something very clear. As I cite in footnote 14 of my statement, the CDC knew in March, the CDC already knew not only were people getting COVID, people were dying from COVID if they were vaccinated. Hundreds of thousands of people were already getting COVID. That was in the leaked CDC slideshow. Anthony Fauci published an article a week after he left that we see cited in footnote 8, where he said we knew that these intramuscular vaccines can't prevent infection and transmission of COVID. And I'll say one last thing. What I heard today is silencing me was a triumph for these guys. Not because I said anything wrong, but because all they cared about was vaccine hesitancy. We heard them say we can suppress true information about side effects if that promotes vaccine hesitancy. It might not have even mattered whether or not I said anything about the science.
And as
merely me
that,
saying that there was you have a constitutional right.
Professor, real quick, I've got limited time.
I apologize.
So you yourself have been censored because of the actions of what was happening within the White House. Does it concern you that you would have been censored under a content moderation policy that YouTube wanted approved by the White House?
Yes, extremely.
Why do you think it's important that Congress and the American people know whether the White House was secretly pressuring big tech to censor American speech?
Because people have a right to know whether they're getting a true flow of information, and each of us have a right to know whether we are being targeted by the federal government for silencing and suppression.
Thank you. Mr. Flaherty and Mr. Slavitt, why won't the White House turn over your documents to Congress?
Congressman, can you say that again?
Why won't the White House turn over your documents to Congress? We've requested them.
Congressman, I would refer you to the White House counsel's office on that particular matter.
Well, I'm presuming that they're probably watching this hearing. So would you have any objections to your emails with the social media companies being released to this committee?
Congressman, I'd refer you to the White House counsel's office on this particular matter.
Well, you say that you've done nothing wrong, and you kind of come in here like the noble guy that has helped save America, and you have no regrets really about your actions. Is that correct?
It is correct that I don't regret, and I am proud of the actions.
Then there would be, logically, there would be no objection on your part for those emails, for your very purposeful duty at the White House, to be released to this committee. Is that a problem?
I'm certainly proud of the actions the administration took to save lives, but I would refer you to the White House counsel's office on that matter.
So you say you did nothing wrong, but you don't want anyone to see what you said or did. That's kind of where we're at, I think.
Congressman, I'm here to answer questions.
And I've got limited time. I got 20 seconds. So here's the rub. The data changed. Things changed. You have decided that you were the arbiter of truth. Now, you were working with some experts. Other experts had different things. You wanted censorship on whether it was in a lab or not. Well, we now know, based on Director Ray's testimony, that that is actually kind of presumed. So you're assuming facts in reality, in real time, but you're not actually, but the things change. And I'm going to wrap up here in a second. You're not a medical expert. You're not a medical expert, but you are asking
Gentleman's
social
time's
media
expired.
companies to weigh in on that. And that's the problem, is that you have acted as
Gentleman's
the arbiter
time
of
has
truth
expired,
in a
Mr.
country that
Chairman.
adheres to civil liberties.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman may respond if you'd like.